Are you ready to learn the truth about surviving the harshest cold of the frontier? What I am about to show you will completely change your perception of the reliability of modern winter jackets and tents. In those distant times, winters on the Great Plains and in the mountains were truly merciless. The icy biting wind left no chance for unprepared travelers. People had absolutely no access to high-tech windproof materials or comfortable thermal underwear, which seem like the norm to us today. Pioneers of the Wild West and itinerant workers faced temperatures of -40 degrees without synthetic insulation. They had to rely solely on their wits and heavy natural materials. Winter snowstorms could suddenly catch travelers out in the open field without any natural shelter. Ordinary wool and thick animal hides helped to keep them warm, but during extreme, prolonged cold spells, this was often not enough for a safe night's rest. Every winter night on the prairies turned into a real battle for survival, where any mistake could be their last. Watch the video to the end, and you'll learn how simple smoldering coals and thick canvas save people in the middle of a deadly icy wasteland. The secret that people today pay thousands for in gear stores actually lies in ordinary old newspapers. Modern hikers and climbers buy incredibly expensive membrane jackets to protect themselves from the icy biting wind. However, migrant workers during the Great Depression didn't have a penny to spare for special clothing. They used thick stacks of the most ordinary waste paper to save themselves. These people wrapped newspaper sheets around their bodies directly under their outer clothing, creating a reliable protective layer. The paper created a truly dense and impenetrable barrier against the cold outside air. The layers of compressed cellulose excellently retain the body's natural heat inside this improvised cocoon. Even a fierce wind at -40 degrees simply couldn't penetrate these numerous pages. Practice showed that this paper barrier worked many times more effectively than many modern multi-layered materials. Simple physics helped the poor survive where expensive items were out of the question. This original method of insulation required absolutely no financial investment. Workers simply collected discarded fresh newspapers at large train stations or post offices. They carefully folded the sheets into several layers and placed them between their shirt and heavy coat. During the harshest blizzards and storms, the number of paper layers was significantly increased for better insulation. This allowed them to turn an ordinary worn-out coat into a true winter armor. Thick, dry paper also excellently absorbed excess moisture from the skin. Thanks to this property, a person could move around actively, work, and not freeze from their own sweat. Damp, soggy sheets could always be easily replaced with brand new ones at the very next train stop. Modern high-tech moisture-wicking technologies work on a very similar, but much more expensive principle. Newspapers, on the other hand, were available to anyone and everyone completely free of charge. Old newspapers were often used by travelers for emergency insulation of frozen shoes. Crumpled, soft paper was packed tightly into the very bottom of the boots instead of the thick insoles we are accustomed to. It created the necessary air cushion between the frozen ground and the traveler's feet. This small, clever addition allowed workers to stand on icy ground for hours without any harm to their health. Feet stayed warm even in the cheapest and thinnest leather shoes. To protect the lower legs, wide sheets of paper were tightly wrapped around the ankles and calves. This paper structure was secured on top with strong ropes or long pieces of old coarse fabric. Such an improvised felt boot effectively protected against severe frostbite during long treks through deep snow. Appearance at such moments was of absolutely no importance in the face of deadly extreme cold. The main task was to preserve one's limbs and the ability to continue on the journey. The workers themselves always called this simple method their main and most valuable secret to survival. Many of them were forced to spend the entire long winter in open, drafty freight cars. The trains were pierced through and through by the icy winds of the endless Great Plains. Only thick layers of ordinary pressed paper allowed these people to safely reach their destination alive. Paper became their only shield in the fight against the harsh American winter. Modern, expensive thermal underwear often fails to keep a person warm during prolonged periods of inactivity. Synthetic materials lose their unique properties quite quickly in truly severe and persistent cold. Newspaper sheets, on the other hand, worked flawlessly in virtually any, even the most unpredictable, weather conditions. They were very easy to find in any, even the tiniest, settlement along the caravan's route. Their availability and reliability made this method of insulation truly universal. This simple folk method turned out to be far more reliable than the most advanced laboratory developments. It didn't require studying complicated instructions for use or possessing any special skills. All one had to do was distribute the sheets of paper evenly and tightly across the body under one's clothing. Over time, this paper armor became a true symbol of resilience and incredible resourcefulness in the frontier era. This knowledge helped those who had nothing but the will to live survive. We'd love to hear your personal take on this historical fact. What do you think about this unconventional way of staying warm during severe winter frosts? Share your thoughts in detail in the comments below this video. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss new amazing facts about the lives of our ancestors. What if everything you've been taught about building fires is hopelessly outdated? Modern survival guidelines usually recommend building a fire on an open, cleared patch of ground. The pioneers of the Rocky Mountains in their time used a completely different, more in-depth approach to effective heating. They deliberately dug deep, specialized pits to maximize heat retention during the bitter winter cold. This method allowed them to survive where ordinary campfires proved completely useless. Any open flame instantly dissipates its thermal energy into the cold surrounding air. Strong gusts of biting winter wind often blow sparks aside and quickly extinguish the unconsolidated embers. An underground hearth, on the other hand, concentrated all the heat of the fire within a strictly confined and protected space. The dense earthen walls of the pit acted like mirrors, reflecting all the heat energy back into the very center. This created the effect of a powerful natural oven right in the middle of the icy forest. To create such an effective hearth, the settlers first dug a narrow and fairly deep pit. Dry small branches and heavy thick logs were carefully laid at the very bottom of this pit. The fire burned deep below, safely shielded from any sudden whims of winter weather. At the same time, the ground surface above the pit remained perfectly suitable for warming people and quickly cooking food. The heat rose upward in a directed stream, without being scattered in different directions by the wind. The narrow entrance to such a hearth created a powerful and steady draft. Oxygen flowed downward evenly across the entire area, ensuring a very high quality and long-lasting burn. Even massive logs burned slowly in such a pit, releasing the maximum amount of useful heat. This allowed people to significantly conserve valuable dry fuel, which was not easy to find in a snow-covered forest. Each log in the underground hearth yielded twice as much heat as in a regular fire. Such a fire was practically impossible for a passing traveler to spot from a distance. The smoke from the pit dissipated very low to the ground, gradually passing through the dense branches of the surrounding trees. In the harsh conditions of the frontier, such concealment often meant complete safety for a group of settlers. The underground hearth reliably warmed people on cold nights while attracting absolutely no unwanted attention. It was the ideal tool for a hidden camp in dangerous wild lands. People often placed flat, massive stones on top of the edges of such a pit. They heated up very quickly from the fire below and then gave off gentle warmth to the surrounding air for hours on end. On these hot stones, travelers boiled water in their kettles and warmed up their modest camp food. The wide stone surface turned into a full-fledged stove for cooking in the woods. This made the pioneers' daily life a little more comfortable and familiar, far from civilization. Once the firewood had finally burned out, the pit turned into a powerful, self-contained heater. The hot red embers at the bottom were covered with a thin protective layer of dry, warmed earth. This earthen cushion radiated even, gentle, and very long-lasting heat throughout nearly the entire night. In this warm spot, one could sleep absolutely safely and comfortably until morning. The earth cooled slowly, acting as a giant heating pad beneath the body of a traveler, weary from the day's journey. Many modern gas burners often freeze up and fail at temperatures of -40 degrees. Their delicate valves and mechanisms break down due to extreme and sudden temperature changes. The underground hearth, however, worked flawlessly in any weather, thanks to the laws of the simplest physics. The earth became a natural thermos for the fire, carefully preserving the precious heat for people. This made the method indispensable for those who ventured deep into the mountains for extended periods. Frontier pioneers carefully passed down this vital survival skill from generation to generation. Knowledge of how to build proper underground fires saved countless lives in the Rocky Mountains in its day. This method required no complex equipment, only a shovel or at least a sturdy stick. He clearly demonstrated the superiority of real-world experience and ingenuity over any technological advancement. People learned to use the planet's own resources to protect themselves from the cold. These unusual earthen ovens radically changed all the usual rules of survival in the winter forest. People learned to masterfully control the element of fire without using complex devices or tools. Their methods were always simple and austere, yet incredibly effective in practice. In the next chapter, you'll definitely learn exactly how the settlers used hot stones to keep warm at night. This secret will help you see the ordinary cobblestones under your feet in a whole new light. What major gear manufacturers hide lies right under your feet. Modern travelers use expensive chemical heat packs for cold nights. The settlers of the Great Plains used ordinary river cobblestones to warm their beds. This method provided heat for 12 hours straight. The stones were selected very carefully before dusk. People looked for round, smooth, medium-sized boulders without cracks. Porous or damp stones could split from the intense heat. A properly chosen cobblestone served as a reliable heat reservoir for years. In the evening, these stones were placed directly into the burning fire. They remained in the fire for several hours until fully heated. The temperature inside the rock reached incredible levels. The stone absorbed the flame's energy slowly and thoroughly. When it was time to sleep, the stones were retrieved from the embers. Long sticks or thick pieces of coarse cloth were used for this purpose. The red-hot boulders could not be touched with bare hands. They were carefully carried into the dwelling or temporary shelter. Then the boulders were wrapped in several layers of thick fabric. The fabric prevented burns and slowed the cooling process. The heat from the stone penetrated through the layers gradually and evenly. A single such bundle replaced a modern electric heater. The hot stones were placed at the feet and on either side of the sleeping person. They created a zone of comfortable above freezing temperature around the body. The air under the blankets warmed up in a matter of minutes. The 40-degree below freezing cold remained outside the shelter. In the morning, the stones were still quite warm. They were used to warm up frozen boots before going outside. Warm boulders were placed inside the shoes for a few minutes. This made the rough leather soft and pliable. Chemical heat packs last only a few hours and need to be replaced. They become useless trash after a single use. River stones could be used an infinite number of times without losing their properties. Nature provided the most effective heating tool for free. This method allowed families to survive in light wooden wagons. It protected settlers from the icy breath of the prairies. Stone heat packs became an integral part of daily life on the frontier. Their effectiveness was proven by the harshest winters of the frontier. Simple observation helped people find warmth in cold cobblestones. Please don't forget to like this video if you're interested in such inventive methods. Your support helps us create new historical videos. Like this video so we can release more content like this. I discovered this quite by accident while carefully studying the old yellowed archives of the first expeditions. These days, modern winter hikers are used to relying entirely on tents made of expensive, high-tech synthetic fabrics. We believe that bright nylon will save us from any bad weather in the forest or mountains. However, the brave pioneers of the past knew perfectly well that even the thickest fabric quickly freezes through in a strong, biting wind. Instead of battling the elements in the open, they preferred to take shelter right in the thick of deep snow. Snow actually possesses simply superb and unique thermal insulation properties. The porous structure of each individual snowflake allows it to trap a huge amount of still air inside. It is precisely this trapped air that acts as a powerful barrier, keeping out the bitter cold from the outside and carefully retaining the warmth inside. A properly constructed snow wall functions as an ideal natural thermos, created by nature itself. In such a shelter, a person feels much more comfortable than in a flimsy cloth hut exposed to the elements. To ensure a safe night's rest during a severe blizzard, travelers would dig a deep trench in a large snowdrift. The length of such a pit always strictly corresponded to a person's height, and the depth usually reached up to the waist. This allowed for sufficient space to rest without compromising the overall structure. A very thick and dense layer of spruce or pine branches was always laid at the bottom of the prepared trench. This fragrant coniferous cushion reliably protected the human body from direct contact with the cold, icy ground. The trench was then carefully covered with a thick piece of heavy canvas or a regular animal hide. The edges of the material were always securely covered with snow to keep them in place, so they wouldn't be blown away by a sudden gust of wind. Thanks to this solution, the wind simply had nothing to catch on the perfectly smooth white surface. The shelter became completely airtight and virtually invisible to outsiders, even from a short distance. Inside, an atmosphere of complete peace and protection from the hostile outside world was created. The temperature inside such a snow trench almost always remained steady around freezing. Even if a terrible storm was raging outside at -40 degrees, inside the shelter it was surprisingly quiet and calm. The heat of the human body in such a small space very quickly warmed the entire enclosed area. This level of warmth was more than enough to survive in extreme cold. People could sleep peacefully for several hours, regaining their strength after a difficult day's trek. Any modern tent cools down very quickly without a constant internal heat source. Thin synthetic walls simply cannot withstand the icy, powerful gusts of the north wind for long. A snow trench, on the other hand, absorbed all the blows of the elements without any harm to its occupant. The thick layer of compacted snow not only retained heat but also reliably muffled any frightening sounds of the raging storm. Inside such a burrow, a person could hear only their own steady breathing. Such an effective shelter could be easily created almost anywhere there was a sufficient layer of snow. People did not need to carry heavy metal frames or sharp stakes on their shoulders. The main tool was an ordinary wooden shovel, and sometimes even just a wide plank or a flat stone. It usually took less than half an hour to build such a reliable snow den. This made it possible to quickly set up camp even as dusk fell or a sudden storm struck. In the harsh conditions of the frontier, the total weight of equipment always played a decisive and critical role. Experienced people consciously rejected complex and heavy structures in favor of the judicious use of the natural terrain. They learned early on to view snow not as their mortal enemy, but as a faithful and reliable ally. The boundless winter wilderness itself provided them with everything necessary to organize a safe and warm place to spend the night. All that was needed was a little patience and physical effort to build it. Such snow trenches have saved entire research expeditions on more than one occasion during sudden blizzards. They gave people a real chance to weather days of bad weather in relative comfort and without frostbite. This old method has repeatedly proven its unmatched effectiveness in the highest and coldest mountains. People literally blended into the surrounding nature to cheat death and survive against all odds. Today, this knowledge seems to us like the forgotten magic of the past, but it saved thousands of lives. Snow really turned out to be a much better insulator than many widely advertised modern materials. This simple yet vital knowledge gave ordinary settlers a real chance of survival in the wilderness. They understood the physics of these processes far more deeply than we can imagine today. In the next chapter, you'll learn how they coped with this terrible weather without modern windproof clothing. On the endless Great Plains, cold winds could blow for weeks on end without the slightest pause. This piercing gust of air instantly penetrated any ordinary fabric of the time. The settlers searched for a solution for a long time and eventually found a way to make plain cotton completely windproof. They began using ordinary linseed oil to create a kind of reliable and durable shield. This transformed the soft fabric into genuine protective gear capable of withstanding the harsh winter elements. A large piece of coarse canvas was very carefully saturated with hot natural oil. The fabric eagerly absorbed the liquid, and the oil completely filled all the microscopic gaps between the threads. Then this heavy canvas was dried outdoors for a very long time until it had completely hardened. As a result of this lengthy process, an incredibly dense, heavy, and very stiff material was produced. It became like flexible armor, ready to protect its owner from any vagaries of the weather. In severe frost, this oiled canvas became hard and resonant, like a sheet of plywood. It stopped bending entirely and no longer let a single drop of cold air pass through it. A person would simply wrap themselves in this piece of fabric as if donning a real, sturdy shell. Even an icy wind at -40 degrees would simply bounce off this smooth, slippery surface. Moisture couldn't soak into the fibers, meaning the clothing didn't get heavier or become covered in ice. Modern, expensive jackets with membranes often lose all their useful properties when heavily iced over. External moisture quickly freezes in their micropores, and the fabric instantly begins to let the cold through. The oiled canvas of the past had absolutely no pores and did not absorb any external moisture at all. It remained completely dry and guaranteed to be windproof even during the fiercest and longest snowstorms. This made it an indispensable item of clothing for anyone setting out on a long winter journey. People often use this unique material not only to make capes, but also to create sturdy covers for their wagons. Under the protection of this stiff and reliable canvas, a special, warm microclimate was created inside the wagon. Families of settlers could travel for hours through a blizzard without feeling the biting gusts of wind at all. It was quite primitive by today's standards, but absolutely ideal wind protection for that time. The material lasted for years, requiring only periodic renewal of the oil coating. Of course, it must be acknowledged that this homemade material was very heavy and extremely uncomfortable to wear. It was indeed difficult to move quickly on foot or perform any complex fine work while wearing it. However, during long periods of static waiting or overnight stays under the open sky, it was simply unmatched. In those harsh years, the overall reliability of equipment was always prioritized far above personal comfort. People were willing to endure discomfort for the assurance that they would not freeze to death before dawn. The process of properly impregnating the fabric required a great deal of free time and immense patience. Linseed oil was considered a highly valuable resource, especially far from major cities and trade routes. But every gallon of this product spent paid for itself many times over in lives saved during sudden winter storms. People cherished their oil-treated capes and passed them down through their families for many years. A good oilcloth was inherited as a valuable possession. This old method clearly demonstrates the unique approach of frontier people to the things around them. They took the simplest and most accessible materials and, through ingenuity, greatly enhanced their natural properties. Ordinary human ingenuity and the experience of generations replaced all of today's technological progress for them. A simple piece of canvas in their hands became an insurmountable barrier against the fiercest forces of nature. It was a triumph of practical ingenuity over the wild and untamed environment of the Wild West. Today, it is quite difficult for us to imagine wearing such stiff, smelly, and heavy outerwear. We have become too accustomed to the incredible lightness and elasticity of modern professional hiking gear. But in conditions of complete isolation from civilization, it was precisely oiled canvas that was a true lifesaver for people. It provided a solid guarantee of protection in the unpredictable and deadly icy wilderness. Without such simple things, the exploration of new lands would have been simply impossible. Harsh living conditions always demanded equally tough and uncompromising solutions from the pioneers. Settlers literally created protective armor for themselves from whatever was at hand. Their survival methods still genuinely amaze us with their straightforwardness, logic, and incredible practicality. All this invaluable experience of overcoming difficulties is now forever inscribed in the heroic history of the conquest of the Wild West. It was precisely on such small details that the greatness of people who were not afraid to challenge winter itself was built. Here's what happens behind the closed doors of history's archives. Today, the concept of layered clothing is considered an achievement of modern brands. In reality, this principle was actively used by pioneers a century ago. They used coarse burlap to create effective thermal insulation layers. Instead of high-tech fleece and thermal underwear, old flour sacks were put to use. This fabric was coarse, scratchy, but incredibly durable. Settlers would put on several of these shirts at once. Air pockets formed between the layers of burlap. It is precisely still air that is the best insulator against the cold. The more layers of coarse fabric were worn, the more heat was retained. The lower layers absorbed sweat, leaving the skin relatively dry. The upper layers took the brunt of the freezing air. Such clothing did not restrict movement at all while working. Unlike thick, heavy sheepskin coats, burlap allowed one to chop wood freely. When body temperature rose, an extra layer could be easily removed. Thermoregulation was achieved in the most primitive way. Modern synthetic fabrics melt at the slightest spark from a fire. Burlap consisted of natural fibers resistant to mild heat. A person could sit comfortably right next to an open fire. This was critically important for survival on freezing nights. After washing or getting wet, burlap dried very quickly. It was hung near the hearth, and the coarse fibers released moisture. In conditions of constant dampness, quick-drying clothing was essential for health. This set it apart from heavy, dense fabrics. Frontier people never threw away old sacks. The sacks were resewn, patched, and turned into a functional wardrobe. Poverty forced people to be incredibly resourceful. Ordinary trash became an essential part of winter gear. Even shoes were often wrapped in strips from those same sacks. This created an extra layer of air over the leather boots. Feet stayed warm even during long walks on ice. Layering worked equally well for all parts of the body. This method shows that the key is understanding the principles of physics. You don't need expensive materials to stay warm. It's enough to create the right structure using available resources. The experience of the pioneers of the West confirms this 100%. The use of burlap became a symbol of practicality and endurance. These rugged people knew how to get by with the absolute bare minimum of belongings. In the next chapter, you'll learn how they found shelter on a completely flat plain in the midst of a storm. On the endless plains, the wind picked up to tremendous speeds. A winter storm could easily blow away a modern tourist's lightweight tent. The pioneers knew that fighting such a force was futile. They used the natural features of the landscape as an impenetrable shield. People never set up camp on open high ground. They carefully sought out ravines, dry riverbeds, or deep hollows. These natural depressions sheltered people from the direct gusts of hurricane-force winds. It was significantly warmer and much calmer down below. Even a small dip in the terrain could save a life during a blizzard. Settlers positioned their wagons so that they blocked narrow ravines. This created an additional artificial barrier against the cold air currents. Inside such an improvised fort, they could build a life-saving fire. Modern guidelines often advise avoiding low-lying areas due to the accumulation of cold air. On the frontier, the icy wind killed much faster than the static cold. Protection from constant exposure to the wind was an absolute priority for survival. The terrain became man's main ally in the struggle against the elements. In mountainous terrain, they sought out dense thickets of shrubs or fallen trees. Intertwined trunks and branches broke the wind currents into small, safe streams. Behind such a natural wall, one could safely wait out a snowstorm. Nature itself provided ideal shelters. Finding the right place to spend the night was a true art. Experienced guides could read the landscape by the direction of the snowdrifts. They knew where the wind piled up snowdrifts and where it left clear spaces. This keen observation was worth its weight in gold. Shelter in ravines had another advantage. Snow piled up on the edges of the ravine created a natural roof. People found themselves in a spacious snow cave, protected on all sides. The temperature there was stable and predictable. Modern gear often instills a false sense of confidence in one's own abilities. Tourists set up camp in picturesque but dangerous places. Settlers of the Wild West could not afford such a luxury. Their lives depended on their ability to hide in the folds of the terrain. This skill required a deep understanding of the laws of nature. People did not conquer the wilderness, but adapted to its harsh nature. Using the landscape conserved energy and preserved precious heat. It was the ultimate school of survival on the frontier of civilization. The ability to read the terrain was passed down from experienced trackers to novices. Mistakes in choosing a place to spend the night came at too high a cost. Knowledge of the terrain was as essential a tool as a knife or fire. Nature was both a threat and the only salvation. Deep snow turned any winter journey into an exhausting and dangerous ordeal. In such conditions, a person could sink waist deep, losing all their strength with every step. Modern snowshoes are made today from very lightweight plastic and durable aircraft-grade aluminum. However, the pioneers of past centuries did not have access to such high-tech and expensive materials. They learned to create the perfect means of transportation on their own from the most ordinary branches and flexible bark. Young and flexible shoots of willow or ash served as a reliable foundation for the entire future structure. The wood was first soaked for a long time in hot water or thoroughly steamed over an open fire. This simple process made the branches incredibly pliable and completely prevented cracks from forming when they were bent sharply. An experienced craftsman carefully shaped them into a classic oval or teardrop-shaped frame of the desired size. This frame was intended to serve as a sturdy skeleton for the entire structure. The ends of the bent branch were securely tied together with strong rawhide straps or bundles of plant fibers. Then the entire interior of the resulting frame was tightly woven with a dense mesh of thin roots or elastic bark. This mesh had to be very strong to easily support the weight of an adult man along with his heavy load. The weaving process itself was painstaking and required immense patience and meticulous precision. Any gap in the weave could lead to a breakdown at the most inopportune moment of the journey. These homemade snowshoes allowed the traveler's body weight to be evenly distributed over a large area. As a result, the person practically stopped sinking deeply into the loose snowdrifts with every step. This simple engineering solution saved a tremendous amount of energy during long and difficult winter treks. Travel speed across the snow-covered plain increased many times over, turning an exhausting trek into a confident march. People could cover dozens of miles where they previously could not even take 100 steps. Many modern plastic models can suddenly crack in excessively severe and sudden frost. Repairing such a serious breakage in harsh field conditions is practically impossible without special tools. Snowshoes made of natural vines, on the other hand, were exceptionally reliable and very easy to repair. Any part that suddenly broke could be quickly replaced with a suitable branch from the nearest tree right on the spot. This gave the traveler confidence that he would not be left helpless in the middle of a snowy wilderness. The unique woven bark mesh had another important advantage. It prevented wet snow from sticking to the structure. With every new step, dry, frosty snow easily fell through the mesh without weighing down the footwear. The snowshoes remained surprisingly light throughout the long and difficult journey through the forests. Heavy aluminum frames often become icy in such conditions and eventually become simply impossible for a weary traveler to carry. Natural materials worked much more effectively and predictably in this regard. People of that time often made snowshoes of various shapes for completely different types of snow cover. For example, for loose forest snow, they usually made wide and fairly short models for better maneuverability between trees. For moving across hard-packed snow on open plains, people preferred longer and narrower shapes. This individual approach to equipment ensured maximum effectiveness in any situation. Knowledge of the terrain's characteristics helped in choosing the right tool for survival. A secure attachment to the footwear was made from simple but very thick and durable ropes. The foot was held quite firmly in such a binding, yet could easily be released in the event of an accidental fall. This important feature often saved people from serious dislocations and fractures on uneven terrain hidden beneath the snow. The design was thought out in detail down to the smallest nuances, based on the ancestors' many years of experience. The simplicity of these bindings guaranteed their reliability in any weather. The creation of such high-quality snowshoes was considered a vital and honorable skill on the frontier. Without this device, travel between remote winter settlements became practically impossible. Snowshoes transformed the impassable icy wilderness into a habitat suitable for living and working. It was a true triumph of human ingenuity in the face of an extreme shortage of any industrial resources. People did not wait for help. They created the tools themselves to conquer the wild lands. Simple willow branches gave people real power over the vast and harsh, snowy expanses of the West. This humble invention largely determined the success of the settlement of the northernmost and coldest frontier territories. In the skilled hands of craftsmen, natural materials served reliably for many decades. Willow snowshoes rightfully became a true symbol of the resilience and ingenuity of the winter West. Sleeping on bare, frozen ground in winter threatened a person with inevitable hypothermia and rapid death. The cold literally drained the life from a sleeping person's body in just a few hours. Modern mountaineers and professional hikers use thick, inflatable mats with synthetic insulation for sleeping. However, during the era of active frontier settlement, the best and most accessible insulation came from the branches of common spruce or pine trees. They created an ideal and reliable barrier between a person's warm body and the icy ground. To properly set up a full-fledged bed, it was necessary to first gather a fairly large amount of fresh coniferous branches. The branches were carefully laid out in tight rows, overlapping each other like roof tiles on a village house. The branches were often stuck into the snow or frozen ground at a certain angle to create volume. In this clever way, a very resilient and incredibly thick natural mattress was created. It not only protected against the cold, but also smoothed out all the unevenness of the ground, stones, and roots. The long needles of fresh pine needles trapped a huge amount of still air within their structure. As we already know well from the laws of physics, air is the best natural insulator. The thickness of such an improvised bedding could reach half a meter in the harshest and most extreme winter conditions. The cold from the frozen ground simply could not penetrate this fluffy and dense organic armor. A person found themselves as if in a protective cocoon, separated from the icy abyss beneath them. Any inflatable mat can easily be punctured by sharp rocks and deflate instantly, leaving the user unprotected. A coniferous mattress, in contrast, was practically impossible to damage or accidentally render unusable. It served the traveler reliably and faithfully throughout their entire stay at the temporary campsite. A person could sleep soundly and deeply without any fear of their equipment suddenly failing in the middle of the night. This provided the necessary sense of calm, which is so important for proper rest. A special resin contained in fresh pine needles released a pleasant, rich, and very beneficial aroma while one slept. Natural phytoncides actively helped purify the air inside the cramped and stuffy winter shelter. Over time, this distinctive scent of pine needles became inextricably linked in people's memories with recollections of the hardships of life on the trail. It seemed as though wild nature itself was looking out for the minimal comfort and health of these brave pioneers. The air in such a camp was always clean and healing for the lungs. The branches in the bedding were always arranged in a special way to ensure maximum comfort while sleeping. Thicker, coarser twigs were usually placed on the very bottom layer of the mattress to create a sturdy frame. The thinnest, softest, and fluffiest twigs were carefully arranged to form the top surface of the bed. A forest bed gathered correctly and with love was in no way inferior in quality to modern, expensive mattresses. On such a bed, one could truly regain strength after an exhausting day's trek through the snow. Gathering a large amount of spruce branches in the forest required considerable physical effort. However, in the bitter cold, such active work actually helped one warm up faster before a long sleep. People tried to set up camp well before dark so they could thoroughly prepare their beds. This was a mandatory and sacred ritual of survival in the harsh and dark winter forest. Disregarding this rule could cost any member of the expedition their health or even their life. This tried and true method of insulation did not require travelers to carry excess or heavy weight. All the materials needed for construction were always in abundance right at the site of the future camp in the forest. Frontier people preferred to travel light, relying entirely on the generosity of the surrounding nature. Pine branches were an absolutely free, accessible, and practically endless resource for everyone. The main thing was to know how to use them properly to one's advantage. Even on the completely treeless prairie, resourceful people always found a worthy substitute for pine needles. Settlers gathered large bundles of tall, dry grass and tied them into thick, dense mats. Such grass also trapped air well and reliably protected a person from the freezing cold of the ground. The main principle of survival was always to create an air gap between the body and the ground. This rule worked equally well in any geographical region of the Wild West. A deep understanding of the hidden properties of plants allowed people to survive successfully, even in the most extreme conditions. A coniferous mattress saved thousands of people from severe frostbite and illness over generations. These simple yet effective skills formed an invisible foundation of safety at the very edge of civilization. The wilderness always provided everything necessary for those who knew how to look closely and seek the right solutions. Only an understanding of the surrounding world offered a chance to survive until the next spring. Breathing at -40 degrees burns the lungs. Modern researchers use special masks with heat exchangers to warm the air. In the Wild West, people used ordinary charcoal to create life-saving filters. This method is striking in its simplicity and extreme effectiveness. An ordinary scarf quickly becomes covered with a crust of ice in severe cold. Moisture from breathing freezes, turning the fabric into an icy shell. Breathing through such a frozen barrier becomes absolutely impossible. Frontier settlers found an ingenious solution to this problem. They took a small piece of porous fabric or gauze. Inside, they wrapped crushed pieces of clean charcoal from a campfire. This improvised pouch was secured over the mouth and nose. The charcoal filter created an ideal zone for comfortable breathing. The porous structure of the charcoal acted like a sponge for moisture. It instantly absorbed the vapor from exhaled breath, preventing it from freezing. The fabric around the filter remained dry and elastic, even in the harshest blizzard. A person could breathe deeply and evenly without fear of lung spasms. The charcoal itself excellently retained the heat of human breath. With every inhalation, cold air passed through the warm charcoal. It reached the lungs already sufficiently warm and completely safe. This primitive heat exchanger worked flawlessly. Modern heat exchange masks cost a fortune and require maintenance. A charcoal filter could be made in a few minutes from scrap materials. Used charcoal was simply discarded and replaced with fresh charcoal from a new fire. No complicated instructions or spare parts were needed. Such a filter also purified the air of smoke. While in cramped snow caves, this was critically important. The charcoal absorbed harmful impurities from the smoldering fire. Breathing remained clean and easy under any conditions. This secret was often used by travelers in the mountains. During long treks, they had to stand motionless in the cold for hours. The charcoal pouch allowed them to breathe silently and without forming clouds of steam. Stealth and comfort were provided by a single simple device. Knowledge of coal's properties was passed down orally among the settlers. Everyone could adapt the size of the filter to their personal needs. It was a true folk invention, born out of dire necessity. It saved many people from frostbite of the respiratory tract.
How the dust settles at the bottom. That's what catches the impurities.
Today, we have forgotten many such simple solutions. Our comfort depends on complex factory technologies and synthetic materials. But the experience of the past proves that nature is full of hidden possibilities. All it takes is to look at familiar things from a new angle. We see that survival in the Wild West required a deep understanding of the laws of nature and incredible ingenuity. These rugged methods often proved more reliable and effective than many modern technological solutions. The pioneers' experience shows how the human mind is capable of transforming a cold and hostile environment into one suitable for life. Be sure to suggest topics in the comments for future videos that you'd like to see on our channel, and don't forget to subscribe.